Happy Wednesday. Can I just say how absolutely proud I am of you for yesterday's work. You were tremendous. You really got down to it and I couldn't have faulted you at all. Well done. Remember, if you struggle with today's or any other work that you're doing, get in touch on Dojo or Google Classroom between 9 and 3 and I will get back to you. There was something else I wanted to say as well. What was it? Oh yes, I remember. Now, Google Classroom is fantastic in many ways, but the stream, which is what comes up when you first log on, is getting a bit clogged up. Could you please make sure that instead of starting a new thread, a new post, you comment on either mine or Mrs. Fubister's? Obviously, if you have a photo to share, you can't do that because you can't share photos on comments. But if you're just going to have a chat with your friends, which is lovely and it's really important to do, could you please just comment on our posts rather than starting a new one? Then what happens, you see, is people who log in a bit later in the day can't find me and Mrs. Fubister's posts, so they don't know what work they need to do. So please make sure that you do that. Okay, so if you remember Chapter 8 of the Lavellan, I'd taken Darwin down to the stream and we saw these two guys again, and it was the two guys who had the guns before, wasn't it? And Darwin had frightened them away by barking. And, you know, I was a bit confused about this, so I asked Mum, and Mum said that because Darwin is a Kushi, a mythical dog, he barks 3 times, and if you hear his third bark, and you're not in safety by then, so you've not found a safe place, then you die from terror. So that's where we left it. Let's see what happens next in Chapter 9. Okay. The whole idea of dying from terror would have seemed pretty far-fetched a few days ago. Now, though, I had moved to the middle of nowhere, made friends with a mythical dog, seen a gigantic water ball and a cat with magical powers, and found a secretive mythical animal which even my mum couldn't have seen. And been threatened by 2 armed guys who wanted to steal my dog friend. Well, they weren't going to get him. I was going to make sure of that. I would go everywhere with Darwin, who seemed fairly glad of the company. The next 2 days I wandered down to the river to watch the Lavellan. I'd take a fish each time, of course, and I was sure the animal was coming more quickly. I wondered if it was waiting for me. Well, waiting for the fish every morning. Darwin was a friendly companion. Every morning he would stand impatiently while I ate my breakfast, his large shoulders bumping the top of the table. When he wagged his tail, Mum would get firm and tell him to get into the living room where there weren't as many breakable things. Every morning. This went on for a week. By the weekend, I was spending more and more time outside and completing my schoolwork in the evening. Mum didn't mind, as long as I did it. Even in the evening, though, I'd glance out the window and feel a magnetic pull towards the great outdoors. But that maths was not going to do itself. The weekend brought torrential rain, a storm which would rival any in the Amazon rainforest. I wondered if the Lavellan would be okay without its breakfast, as Mum categorically said I was not to go out today. Even Sheba, the cat she, came inside, prowling around the house and eventually settling on the mantelpiece above the fire. I swear I have no idea how she got up there or why I couldn't get into the room while she was asleep. The door wouldn't open, as though it were locked, so Mum and I spent the morning in the kitchen. Taurus, the water bull, loved the storm. Honestly, I don't think I've ever seen an animal that big playing around a field like a lamb. It was hilarious. Darwin moaned and groaned, but eventually settled by the window, his enormous head on his paws, looking out forlornly to the flooding field. By Tuesday, the weather had cleared up, and there were only a few large puddles on the field. I didn't ask Mum if it was okay to go out today. I just boldly stated my intention at the breakfast table. Do you have another fish? I asked. I'm going to go out and see the Lavellan today. Mum didn't argue, but made an adult "are you really" kind of noise. I'm not sure if they know they're doing it or not. She nodded and pointed to the fridge. I grinned down at Darwin, hardly able to keep my excitement contained. I loved this house, but it was really small to be cooped up in. I needed to be outside, and Darwin did as well. After eating, Darwin and I scuttled off to the river, me gripping the bag with the fish in. I still didn't like the feel of it, and the way it slipped and slid around in my hand. I was sure we were getting faster at going down to the stream, and I placed the fish down on the bank with uncertainty, wondering if the Lavellan would have moved on because it hadn't been fed for a few days. I was wrong. The moment I walked back, so I was at what it judged to be a safe distance, it rustled out of the grasses and grabbed the fish, tugging it back into safety with determination. We had to get the Lavellan, somehow. Now we knew where it was, we needed to be able to trap it. To let it go again, of course. But the creature seemed very intelligent, and I had not come up with any ideas yet. Yes, it liked food, but it was very cautious, even now when it was used to me. It would wait to come out of the safety of the grasses until I had stepped back a suitable distance, and I'd watched it move fast when it wanted to. I stared into the river, wondering how to trap the Lavellan. The most difficult thing of all was that I didn't want to hurt it. I'd seen animal traps in films before, nasty, horrible things, but I wasn't going to use one of them. No, I didn't want the Lavellan to get hurt or feel frightened. The sky was looking like it might rain again, and I turned around to go back home. I'd fed the Lavellan, and there was no way I was going to be able to trap it today. Not now it had its breakfast. There was nothing to tempt it with. I decided that tomorrow I would try and stop it from going into the grasses. I'd spend most of the evening thinking of the way. Darwin and I started wandering off up the hill, but stopped as we heard car engines. Back in town, I wouldn't have batted an eyelid, but I'd not heard another car around here for days. It was coming from behind us. I looked and saw 2 Land Rovers driving towards us from the opposite side of the river. Curiosity and confusion mixed with reason, and I stood for a moment trying to figure out who they were and why they were there. When the car stopped and 3 men got out, I recognized 2 of them straight away, and I began running for the cover of the hill, calling for Darwin to follow. I made it, but when I looked back to see where Darwin was, I realized he hadn't moved at all. He hadn't made his fur stand on end like the other day, and I could hear him growling, but he hadn't even tried to run. "Darwin!" I shouted, but his ears just twitched. "Darwin, you stupid dog!" He wasn't going to move, but tensed his whole body and barked. 2 of the men covered their ears, moaning, backing off to the Land Rovers as though they desperately wanted to leave. What was stopping them, I thought. Then I looked at the 3rd man, who was grinning. I don't think I'd ever seen a smile that made my skin crawl as much as that one. Knowing that Darwin wasn't going to follow me and that this man was not going to be frightened off by his barks, I ran down the hill to the couchee, but I didn't dare touch him in case he snapped. He barked again, and I wondered if Mum's story had been true. If I heard the 3rd bark, would I die of terror? I briefly considered just making a run for it, but I couldn't abandon him, and I wouldn't be able to get far enough away from the bark if I did. By now, the 2 men were standing behind the Land Rovers. Whoever this other person was, they were more scared of him than Darwin, and that made my head spin with worry. The other man would not stop smiling, but raised the object he was carrying. My eyes almost popped out of my head when I realized it was some kind of gun. Now I risked touching Darwin. I grabbed at his fur, pulling him back to the hill, but he was twice as strong as I was and remained standing. His muscles were shaking, and he raised his head again to bark, a 3rd time. There was a quiet whoosh, and Darwin staggered to the side. He didn't bark, but made a sound like a mixture of a growl and a whimper. I stood open-mouthed and wide-eyed when I realised that he had been shot. My whole body tensed as fear turned into anger, a crushing fury that I had never felt before when I heard the man laugh. And that's the end of the chapter. So, given that I love animals so much, I highly doubt that Darwin is dead, so don't worry. You will find out what happens to him in chapter 10, which is what I will post up tomorrow morning when I've written it. Okay, now let me think of some comprehension questions that you need to answer today. Now, I would like you please to write your answer as a reply to my post. Remember, don't make a post of your own. Just write the answer as a reply to mine. Question 1. Okay, we'll start with the easier question. Why could I not go outside at the weekend? Why could I not go outside at the weekend? That's question 1. There were 3 questions altogether. Pause the video while you work it out. And in question 2, let me think. Question 2. Who do you think the man at the end of the chapter is? Who is the man at the end of the chapter? Have a think about it. Okay, question 3, last question. How did I feel when I saw the Land Rovers? How did I feel when I saw the Land Rovers? Think carefully about that. There's a lot of feelings in this chapter and you've got to get the right one. It may not be written down. I can't remember if I wrote it down or said it or not. So you may have to think around it slightly. Think about how you would feel. So question 1, why couldn't I go out at the weekend? Question 2 was something else. It was, what was it? Forgotten.
Who is the man?
Oh yeah, that was it. Who is the man at the end of the chapter? And question 3, how did I feel when I saw the Land Rovers? So I would like everyone, please, to answer those 3 questions. This is your comprehension for today. It is important. 3 questions as a reply to this post. Okay, enjoy. Have a lovely day.